day for the next sitting. The clerk.
Private members' business. Notice number 6, genocide. Motion to be moved by the member for North Sydney.
I'll give the call to member for North Sydney.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I move the motion relating to genocide in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper.
The member for North Sydney.
Madam Deputy Speaker, there are two places in the world I've visited which have moved me to my very core. They both represent some of the darkest chapters in modern human history. Sitting on the western slope of Mount Herzl in Jerusalem, it lies Yad Vashem, Israel's official remembrance memorial and centre for those who perished in the Holocaust. I visited Yad Vashem 3 times. The third time was just as powerful as the first. And within the complex, nothing has touched me more than the Children's Memorial, where the loss of 1.5 million Jewish children is remembered. All of the victims of the Holocaust were innocent of any crime other than being who they were culturally or in their faith. Yet there is something especially moving and disturbing reflecting on those children in their age of innocence and with their lives before them, but murdered without compunction or compassion. How could this ever be so? And on a ridge above the Armenian capital of Yerevan sits an austere but impressive memorial and museum dedicated to the 1.5 million Armenians killed in the Ottoman Empire during one of the greatest tragedies of the modern era. Just over 2 years ago, I visited Yerevan with my federal colleagues, the members for Goldstein and Bennelong. We planted a tree in the Grove of Remembrance and we laid a wreath. These were small gestures, but reflected our determination to ensure that the suffering of the Armenian people during its genocide is never forgotten. Both places are heart-wrenching and sobering. Both so clearly convey the barbaric impact and magnitude of genocidal crimes designed to exterminate a people based on their ethnicity and beliefs. On the 9th of December this year, as happens every year, the United Nations will mark the crimes of genocide that have killed so many millions in the modern era. It will reflect on that great early achievement in the United Nations history, the adoption of the Genocide Convention. That convention had its immediate impetus in the events of the Holocaust and the global determination to make sure international law recognised the crime against humanity that genocide represents. But as one of its primary authors, Raphael Lemkin, often acknowledged, its roots lay earlier in the genocide undertaken by the Ottoman government. The Holocaust and the Armenian genocides are linked so clearly in driving the creation of that convention, yet they have been treated differently. Australia and the international community, with few exceptions, recognise the Holocaust for what it was, a genocide perpetrated by Nazi Germany and its collaborators. Importantly, this is accepted by current generations of Germans, and their governments have strived for atonement and reconciliation in a way that has been both moving and incredible. Yet similar recognition has not been given to the Armenians or the Assyrians or the Greeks in the Ottoman Empire, past or present, for the genocide they faced despite the enduring scars and legacy. In contrast to Germany, the successor of the Ottoman state, modern Turkey, stridently resists recognition of that genocide for what it was, let alone makes any efforts to heal the wounds wrought by those events. It is time that changed, and Australia must play its part by joining what has been a slow but growing number of nations that have recognised the Armenian and other genocides of the Ottoman regime. This year, President Biden, in a historic statement on behalf of the United States, joined the list of over 30 other nations that have now done so. These events started 106 years ago, yet they do remain relevant today. For the Armenian, Assyrian and Greek people and their diasporas, that great loss haunts their communities. So many count grandparents and other relatives amongst the dead or dislocated. However, the case for recognising the genocide has a much more profound calling, not only based on identifying the truth of past events, but also our efforts to prevent these tragedies occurring again and befalling other communities. We should never forget the words of Hitler, who on the eve of launching his own murderous assault on the people of Poland said, "Who, after all, speaks today of the annihilation of the Armenians?" These crimes cannot be forgotten, and Australia must play its part in making sure they're not. We owe it to truth and justice. We owe it to the memory of the millions who perished and their descendants, and to the hope of atonement. and we owe it to the world as we strive to achieve a more peaceful global community, free of crimes that threaten whole communities based on their attributes of race or culture or belief. 1948 was a landmark year, with the optimism and determination of the still young United Nations to address crimes against humanity like genocide, perhaps the most evil of all. It is that spirit we should remember on the 9th of December, and it is that spirit we should be leaving as our own legacy.